My name is Geneva Washington, and I'm 71 years old. 5 days ago, I came home from grocery shopping to find that my son Raymond and his wife Estelle had changed the locks on MY house, the house I've owned for 43 years, and wouldn't let me inside. I stood on my own front porch, holding bags of groceries, trying my key in the door over and over, unable to understand why it wouldn't work. Then Raymond opened the door just wide enough to speak through the crack. "Mom, we've changed the locks," Raymond said, his voice cold. "You can't live here anymore. We're taking over the house." "What?" I said, confused and shocked. "This is MY house. You can't lock me out of my own home." "We already did," Raymond said. "You're too old to live alone. We're moving in to take care of the property. You need to find somewhere else to stay." He closed the door in my face. I heard the deadbolt click. I stood there on my porch, MY porch, locked out of MY house, holding bags of groceries, unable to believe what had just happened. But what Raymond and Estelle didn't know was that I had the power to change their entire future. And that night, sitting in a hotel room with my attorney on speakerphone, that's exactly what I did. "They locked you out of your own house?" my attorney asked, shocked. "Geneva, that's illegal. We can file for immediate emergency relief and have the police escort you back into your home. But more importantly, we need to act fast to protect your property rights before they try to claim ownership." That night, I didn't just call my attorney. I called the police to file a report. I called my bank to freeze my accounts. I called my financial advisor to change my beneficiaries. And I started the process that would cost Raymond and Estelle everything they thought they'd stolen from me. My family changed the locks on my door. That night, I changed their entire future, and they had no idea what was coming. But to understand how I ended up locked out of my own house by my own son, I need to take you back to the beginning. I bought my house in 1980 when I was 26 years old. I'd saved for years while working as a medical secretary, and I finally had enough for a down payment on a small 3-bedroom house in a nice neighborhood. "Geneva, you're so young to be buying a house by yourself," my mother said when I told her. "Shouldn't you wait until you're married?" "I don't need to wait for a husband to own property," I said confidently. "This is my house. I'm buying it in my name only." And I did. The house was mine, legally, financially, completely mine. 2 years later, I married Theodore Washington. Theodore moved into MY house when we got married, but I kept the house in my name only. Theodore understood and respected that the house was mine before we married, and it would remain mine. "This is your house, Geneva," Theodore said. "I'm just lucky you're letting me live here with you." We had one son together, Raymond, born in 1985 when I was 31 years old. Raymond grew up in my house. I worked full-time while Theodore also worked, and we provided a comfortable middle-class life for our son. But from a young age, Raymond had a sense of entitlement about the house. "When I grow up, I'm going to live in this house forever," Raymond would say as a child. "Well, this is Mama's house," I'd correct him. "Someday when I'm very old and gone, maybe you'll inherit it, but it's mine, not yours." Raymond didn't like hearing that. He acted like the house was already his, like he had some inherent right to it just because he grew up there. "Theodore, we need to make sure Raymond understands that this house belongs to me," I told my husband. "He keeps acting like it's going to automatically be his someday." "He's just a kid," Theodore said. "He'll understand when he's older." But Raymond never really understood. Or maybe he understood but didn't accept it. Raymond married Estelle when he was 25 years old. Estelle came from a family that struggled financially, and from the beginning, she was very interested in what Raymond might inherit from us someday. "So, Geneva, when you and Theodore pass away, Raymond will get this house, right?" Estelle asked me directly one day, not long after their wedding. "Estelle, that's not an appropriate question," I said, uncomfortable. "Theodore and I are healthy and plan to be around for a long time." I know," Estelle said quickly. "I'm just thinking about the future, planning ahead." "The house is in my name," I said firmly. "What happens to it is my decision to make when the time comes." Estelle's face showed disappointment, but she didn't push further. At least not then. 15 years ago, when I was 56, Theodore died unexpectedly from a stroke at age 62. I was devastated. We'd been married for 34 years. Raymond and Estelle were supportive immediately after Theodore's death, helping with funeral arrangements and checking on me regularly. But a few weeks after the funeral, Raymond brought up the house. "Mom, now that Dad's gone, have you thought about your living situation?" Raymond asked. "What do you mean?" I said. "I'm living in my house, the same house I've lived in for 36 years. "I mean, are you sure you want to stay here alone?" Raymond pressed. "It's a lot of house for one person. Maybe you should sell it and move into something smaller." "I don't want to sell my house," I said firmly. "This is my home, I'm staying here." Okay, Raymond said, backing off. "I just wanted to make sure you'd thought about it." But I knew what he was really thinking. If I sold the house, there would be money he hoped to inherit. 10 years ago, Raymond and Estelle started having financial problems. They'd bought a house they couldn't afford and were struggling with the mortgage payments. "Mom, Estelle and I have been talking," Raymond said during one visit. "What if we moved in with you? We could help you with the house and it would help us financially." "You want to move into my house?" I asked, surprised. "Just temporarily," Raymond said. "Until we get back on our feet financially, we'd pay you rent." "Raymond, I like living alone," I said. "I've lived alone for 6 years since your father died. I'm comfortable. I don't want roommates." "But we're not roommates, we're family," Raymond argued. "The answer is no," I said firmly. "But if you need financial help, I can loan you some money for your mortgage." I ended up loaning them $5,000. They promised to pay me back within a year. They never did. 5 years ago, Raymond and Estelle's financial problems got worse. They ended up losing their house to foreclosure and had to move into a rental apartment. "Mom, we lost the house," Raymond told me, sounding defeated. "We're moving into an apartment." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said sympathetically. "What happened?" "We just couldn't afford the payments," Raymond admitted. "Between my job situation and the mortgage, we got behind." "Are you going to be okay?" I asked, concerned. "Yeah, we'll manage," Raymond said. "But Mom, we really need to talk about your house." "What about my house?" I asked warily. "You're 66 years old," Raymond said. "That house is too much for you to maintain. You should think about putting it in my name before something happens to you." "Raymond, I'm 66, not 96, I said, annoyed. "I'm perfectly capable of maintaining my own house, and I'm not putting it in your name." "I'm just thinking about the future," Raymond said. "If something happens to you, there will be estate taxes and probate. If you transfer the house to me now, we avoid all that." "The house is staying in my name," I said firmly. "This conversation is over." Raymond was clearly frustrated, but he dropped it. For the moment. 3 years ago, the pressure from Raymond and Estelle increased dramatically. They started visiting more frequently, and every visit included some comment about the house. "Mom, you're almost 70, Estelle would say. "What if you fall and can't get help? You shouldn't be living alone." "I'm fine," I'd insist. "I'm healthy and active." "But you won't be fine forever," Raymond would add. "You need to start planning for your future care, and part of that planning should include deciding what happens to this house." "I've already decided," I'd say. "The house stays mine until I die, then it will go to whoever I designate in my will." "And who are you designating?" Estelle would ask. "That's private," I'd say. "My will is my business." The truth was, I had left the house to Raymond in my will. But I was starting to reconsider that decision based on how aggressively he was pursuing ownership of it while I was still alive. 2 years ago, Raymond and Estelle lost their rental apartment due to non-payment and suddenly showed up at my house with all their belongings. "Mom, we need to stay with you temporarily," Raymond said when I opened the door to find them with a moving truck. "Raymond, you can't just show up with a moving truck," I said, shocked. "You haven't asked if you can move in." "We don't have anywhere else to go," Estelle said. "We got evicted from our apartment. We need help." You can stay for a few days while you figure things out, I said reluctantly. But this isn't permanent. Of course not, Raymond assured me. Just until we find a new place. But the few days turned into 2 weeks, then a month. Raymond and Estelle showed no signs of looking for a new place to live. Raymond, you need to find your own place, I said after 6 weeks. I told you this was temporary. Mom, we're looking, Raymond said, but we don't have money for a deposit on a new place. Can you help us out? I've already helped you out by letting you stay here for 6 weeks, I said. I can't keep supporting you financially. Fine, Raymond said, clearly angry. We'll leave, but you're going to regret not helping your own son when he needed you. They moved out a week later, going to stay with Estelle's sister. But Raymond's parting words stayed with me. You're going to regret this. 1 year ago, I had a minor health scare. I fainted at home, and my neighbor called 911. I was taken to the hospital and kept overnight for observation. The doctors determined I'd fainted due to dehydration and low blood pressure. Nothing serious, but it required monitoring. Raymond visited me at the hospital and immediately started talking about the house. Mom, this is a wake-up call, Raymond said. What if you'd hit your head when you fainted? What if you'd been seriously hurt? You can't live alone anymore. Raymond, the doctor said it was just dehydration, I said. I'm fine. You're not fine, Raymond insisted. You're 70. You need someone living with you to make sure you're safe. I don't need a babysitter, I said firmly. Then you need to put the house in my name, Raymond said, so that if something does happen to you, I can take care of things without legal complications. The house is staying in my name, I repeated. Raymond looked frustrated but didn't push further, at least not directly. 6 months ago, I discovered that Raymond had attempted to forge documents to transfer my house into his name. I found out when my title company called to verify a deed transfer. Ms. Washington, we received documents indicating you're transferring your property to Raymond Washington, the title company representative said. We need to verify this in person before we process the transfer. I'm not transferring anything, I said, alarmed. I never signed any documents. Then we have a problem, the representative said. Someone submitted a quitclaim deed with your signature. If you didn't sign it, it's forgery. I went to the title company immediately and examined the documents. They had my name, my property address, and what was supposed to be my signature, but I had never seen or signed these papers. This is forged, I told the representative. I need to file a police report. I filed a police report for attempted fraud. The police investigated and traced the documents back to Raymond. He'd tried to forge my signature on a quitclaim deed to transfer the house to himself. When confronted, Raymond claimed it was a misunderstanding. I thought you wanted to put the house in my name, Raymond said when the police questioned him. I was just trying to help move things along. By forging my signature, I said, furious. Raymond, that's a crime. Mom, don't press charges, Raymond begged. I made a mistake, I'm sorry. Please don't send me to jail. Against my better judgment, and with pressure from other family members who wanted to keep the peace, I agreed not to press charges. But I warned Raymond. If you ever try something like this again, I will prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law. Raymond promised he would never do anything like that again. I wanted to believe him. But I also took steps to protect myself. I put fraud alerts on my property title and made sure all my legal documents were secure. 3 months ago, Raymond and I had a massive argument about the house. Mom, I'm your only child, Raymond said. That house should come to me. Why are you being so difficult about this? Because it's my house, I said. I bought it. I've maintained it. I've paid the taxes and mortgage for 43 years. It's mine to do with as I choose. But you're going to die someday, Raymond said bluntly. And when you do, that house should go to me. Why not just give it to me now? Because I'm not dead, I shouted. I'm 71 years old and in good health. I could live another 20 years, and I plan to live those years in my house. You're being selfish, Estelle chimed in. Raymond is your son. He deserves that house. He deserves nothing, I said coldly, especially after he tried to forge documents to steal it from me. I apologized for that, Raymond yelled. An apology doesn't undo the fact that you tried to commit fraud, I said, and it doesn't make me trust you. Fine, Raymond said, his face red with anger. If that's how you feel, maybe I should just stop coming around. Maybe I should just wait for you to die and then take what's rightfully mine. Get out of my house, I said quietly but firmly, and don't come back until you can be respectful. Raymond and Estelle stormed out. That was 3 months ago. I hadn't heard from them since. Until 5 days ago, when I came home to find the locks changed. 5 days ago, I went grocery shopping. I was gone for about 2 hours, a normal shopping trip, nothing unusual. When I returned home with my groceries around 3:00 p.m., I pulled into my driveway and immediately noticed something was different. There was a car parked in my driveway that I didn't recognize, not Raymond's usual car, but a rental truck. I got out of my car with my grocery bags and walked to my front door. I put my key in the lock and turned it. It didn't work. I tried again, thinking I'd just put the key in wrong. Still didn't work. I tried a third time, jiggling the key, thinking maybe the lock was stuck. Nothing. That's when I realized the lock had been changed. I knocked on the door. After a moment, I heard footsteps, and then Raymond opened the door, but only a crack with the chain still attached. Raymond, I said, confused. Why is the chain on, and why doesn't my key work? Mom, we need to talk, Raymond said through the gap. Let me in, I said. I have groceries. We've changed the locks, Raymond said, his voice oddly flat. You can't live here anymore. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. What did you just say? Estelle and I have moved in, Raymond said. We're taking over the house. You're too old to live alone. You need to find somewhere else to stay. This is MY house, I said, my voice rising. You can't lock me out of my own home. We're doing what's best for you, Estelle's voice came from behind Raymond. You're not capable of living alone anymore. I am perfectly capable, I shouted. And this is MY house. I own it. You have no right to lock me out. We have every right, Raymond said. You're old and you're declining. Someone needs to take control before you do something dangerous. Open this door right now, I demanded. No, Raymond said. Go stay with a friend or get a hotel room. We'll talk about this later when you've calmed down. I'm calling the police, I said. Go ahead, Raymond said. We live here now. This is a family matter and the police won't get involved. He closed the door. I heard the deadbolt click. I stood on my porch, MY porch, holding bags of groceries, completely locked out of my own home. Before I continue, kindly subscribe now. Hit that like button and turn on notifications. Drop a comment. Should Geneva press charges against her son? What would you do if family locked you out? Where are you watching from? United States, Canada, United Kingdom, Jamaica, Australia? Let me know. I stood on my porch for 5 full minutes after Raymond closed the door in my face, unable to process what had just happened. My own son had locked me out of my own house, the house I'd owned for 43 years. My groceries were getting heavy. My arms were getting tired, and I was getting angry. I walked back to my car, put the groceries in the trunk, and sat in the driver's seat trying to decide what to do next. Part of me wanted to call the police immediately and have them force Raymond to let me back inside. But another part of me, the strategic part, knew I needed to think carefully about my next moves. Raymond had just made the biggest mistake of his life, and I was going to make sure he paid for it. I drove to a nearby hotel and checked in for the night. Once I was in my room, I made the first of several phone calls that would change everything. The first call I made was to my attorney, Curtis Foster, who'd been handling my legal affairs for 20 years. Curtis, it's Geneva, Washington, I said when he answered. I need emergency legal help. Geneva, what's wrong? Curtis asked, immediately concerned. My son Raymond and his wife, Estelle, changed the locks on my house while I was grocery shopping, I explained. They locked me out. They're claiming they're taking over the house because I'm too old to live alone. They won't let me back inside." "They did what?" Curtis said, clearly shocked. "Geneva, that's illegal. That's forcible entry and unlawful eviction. We can get a court order to have them removed immediately." "I want to do more than just get back into my house," I said. "Raymond tried to forge documents to steal my house 6 months ago. Now he's physically taken it over. I want him prosecuted." "Tell me everything," Curtis said. I spent the next 30 minutes explaining the entire history. Raymond's increasing pressure to get the house, the forged quitclaim deed 6 months ago, the argument 3 months ago, and now the lockout. "Geneva, this is serious criminal behavior," Curtis said when I finished. "Raymond has committed multiple crimes, attempted fraud with the forged documents, unlawful eviction, possibly elder abuse. We need to act immediately on multiple fronts." "What do we do first?" I asked. "First, I'm going to file an emergency petition for immediate possession of your property," Curtis explained. "We'll have a hearing tomorrow morning. The judge will order Raymond and Estelle to let you back into your home immediately and will likely order them to stay away from you." "Good," I said. "Second, we're going to file a police report for unlawful eviction," Curtis continued. "This isn't a civil dispute. This is a crime. Raymond forcibly took over your property without your consent." "What about the attempted fraud from 6 months ago?" I asked. "I didn't press charges then, but I have the police report." "We're going to reopen that investigation," Curtis said. "Raymond's current actions show a pattern of trying to steal your property. The prosecutor needs to see the full picture." "There's something else," I said. "I need to change my will immediately. Raymond is currently my primary beneficiary. After what he's done, I don't want him inheriting anything from me." "We can draft a new will first thing tomorrow," Curtis confirmed. "Geneva, I have to ask, do you have other family members who could inherit instead?" "I have a younger sister, Minnie," I said. "She lives 2 states away. We've always been close. I'd rather leave everything to her than to Raymond after what he's done." "Then that's what we'll do," Curtis said. "Geneva, I'm going to be very direct with you. Raymond is going to be furious when he realizes what's happening. Tomorrow, when we get you back into your house, you need to document everything. Take photos of any changes they've made, any property they've moved. And you need to be prepared for Raymond to escalate." "I'm prepared," I said. "Raymond thinks he can bully me because I'm elderly. He's about to learn that I'm not weak and I'm not giving up my home." After talking to Curtis, I called the non-emergency police line to file a report. "I need to report an unlawful eviction," I told the dispatcher. "My son changed the locks on my house while I was out and won't let me back inside." "Ma'am, is this your primary residence?" the dispatcher asked. "Yes," I confirmed. "I've lived there for 43 years. I own the house. It's in my name only. My son doesn't live there. He broke in while I was grocery shopping and changed the locks." "That's a criminal matter," the dispatcher said. "I'm sending an officer to take your statement. Where are you now?" I gave her the hotel address, and within 30 minutes, 2 police officers arrived at my hotel room. Officer Theodore Martinez and Officer Opal Green listened as I explained what had happened. "Mrs. Washington, do you have proof you own the house?" Officer Martinez asked. "I have my deed in my safe deposit box at the bank," I said, "but I can get it tomorrow. The house is in my name only, Geneva, Washington. I've owned it since 1980. "And your son doesn't have any legal right to the property?" Officer Green asked. "None," I confirmed. "He's not on the deed. He doesn't pay the mortgage. I paid it off 15 years ago. He doesn't pay property taxes. I do. The house is completely mine." "Then what he's done is unlawful eviction," Officer Martinez said. "We're going to file a report, and we'll send officers to your house tonight to inform your son that he needs to let you back inside." "Will they actually make him leave?" I asked. "They'll explain that what he's done is illegal and give him the opportunity to let you back inside voluntarily," Officer Martinez said. "If he refuses, we'll file charges and your attorney can get a court order tomorrow." "My attorney is already working on an emergency court order for tomorrow morning," I said. Good, Officer Green said. Mrs. Washington, I'm going to be honest with you. We see cases like this more often than you'd think. Adult children trying to take advantage of elderly parents' property. What your son has done is a form of elder abuse. We take these cases very seriously. Thank you, I said, feeling validated. The officers completed their report and said they'd send units to my house within the hour to confront Raymond. Next, I called my bank. It was after business hours, but I was able to reach the 24-hour customer service line. I need to freeze my accounts immediately, I told the representative. My son has attempted to steal my property, and I'm concerned he may try to access my financial accounts. Ma'am, are you listed as the sole owner of your accounts? The representative asked. Yes, I confirmed. My son is not authorized on any of my accounts, but I need to make sure he can't somehow access them. I'm placing an immediate fraud alert on all your accounts, the representative said. No one will be able to access them except you, and you'll need to verify your identity with 2 forms of ID. Additionally, I'm flagging your accounts for unusual activity monitoring. Thank you, I said, relieved. Mrs. Washington, I also recommend you come into a branch tomorrow to review your accounts and make sure everything is secure, the representative said. I'll be there first thing in the morning, I promised. My next call was to my financial advisor, Porter Stevens, who managed my retirement accounts and investments. Porter, I need to make immediate changes to all my beneficiary designations, I said. Geneva, it's 8:00 p.m., Porter said. What's going on? I explained the situation. Raymond locking me out, the pattern of attempted theft, my decision to remove him from my will and beneficiaries. I need Raymond removed as beneficiary on all my accounts immediately, I said. I want to designate my sister Minnie as the primary beneficiary on everything. Geneva, I can process those changes first thing tomorrow morning, Porter said. But I have to warn you, if your son finds out, he's going to be very upset. These beneficiary designations are potentially worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. I don't care if he's upset, I said firmly. He locked me out of my house. He's tried to steal my property. He's not getting another dollar from me, living or dead. Understood, Porter said. I'll have the paperwork ready for you to sign tomorrow morning. My final call that night was to my sister Minnie, who lived in a different state. I needed her to know what was happening, and I needed her support. Geneva, Minnie answered, surprised to hear from me so late. Is everything okay? No, I said, and then I started crying. The stress and shock of everything that had happened finally broke through. What's wrong? Minnie asked, alarmed. Through tears, I explained everything. Coming home to changed locks, Raymond refusing to let me inside, having to stay in a hotel. He locked you out of your house, Minnie said, furious. Geneva, that's not just wrong, that's criminal. I know, I said. I've already contacted my attorney and the police. I'm going to court tomorrow to get an emergency order to get back into my house. Do you need me to come there? Minnie offered. I can get on a plane tomorrow. Not yet, I said. But Minnie, I need to tell you something. I'm changing my will. I'm removing Raymond as my beneficiary and making you my primary heir. Geneva, you don't have to do that, Minnie said. Yes, I do, I insisted. Raymond has shown me that he cares more about my property than he cares about me. He's willing to lock me out of my own home to try to steal it. I don't want him inheriting anything from me. I want you to have everything. The house, my savings, my retirement accounts, all of it. Are you sure? Minnie asked. That's going to make Raymond very angry. I'm sure, I said. He had his chance to be a good son. He chose to be a thief instead. Now he'll get nothing. I support whatever you decide, Minnie said. And Geneva, I'm proud of you for fighting back. Raymond thought he could take advantage of you because you're elderly. He's about to learn that you're stronger than he thinks. While I was in my hotel room making calls, the police went to my house, MY House, to confront Raymond. I found out later what happened from the police report. Officers arrived around 9:00 p.m. and knocked on the door. Raymond answered. Are you Raymond Washington? The officer asked. Yes, Raymond said warily. What's this about? We received a report that you changed the locks on this property and refused to allow the owner, your mother Geneva Washington, to enter, the officer said. Is that correct? This is a family matter, Raymond said. My mother is elderly and can't live alone safely. We're taking over management of the property for her own good. Sir, is your name on the deed to this property? The officer asked. No, but, Raymond started. Then you have no legal right to be here, the officer interrupted. Your mother owns this property. By changing the locks and refusing to allow her entry, you've committed unlawful eviction, which is a crime. I'm her son, Raymond protested. I'm protecting her. You're locking her out of her own home, the officer corrected. Sir, you have two options. One, you voluntarily allow Mrs. Washington to return to her home and you vacate the property. Two, Mrs. Washington obtains a court order tomorrow and you're forcibly removed and potentially arrested. She can't take care of this place. Estelle's voice came from behind Raymond. We're doing what's best for her. That's not your decision to make, the officer said. This is her property. If you're concerned about her ability to live independently, there are legal processes to address that. Adult guardianship petitions, competency evaluations. But you can't just take over someone's home without their consent. We're not leaving, Raymond said stubbornly. Then you'll be dealing with the consequences tomorrow when Mrs. Washington gets her court order, the officer said. We're filing a report for unlawful eviction. You're being warned that you're committing a crime by remaining in this property without the owner's consent. The officers left, and according to their report, Raymond immediately closed and locked the door. The next morning, I met Curtis at the courthouse at 8:00 a.m. We had an emergency hearing scheduled before Judge Minnie Foster at 9:00 a.m. Geneva, here's what's going to happen, Curtis explained as we waited. We're going to present evidence that you own the house, that Raymond has no legal right to it, and that he unlawfully evicted you. The judge will issue an order for immediate possession, meaning Raymond and Estelle must vacate immediately and you're allowed back into your home. What if they refuse? I asked. Then the sheriff will forcibly remove them, Curtis said, and they can be arrested for violating a court order. At 9:00 a.m., we went before Judge Foster. Raymond and Estelle were there with a court-appointed attorney since they couldn't afford to hire one themselves. Your Honor, we're here on an emergency petition for immediate possession, Curtis began. My client, Geneva Washington, owns the property at 742 Maple Drive. She has owned it since 1980, as evidenced by this deed. Yesterday, while Mrs. Washington was grocery shopping, her son Raymond Washington and his wife Estelle Washington broke into the property, changed the locks, and refused to allow Mrs. Washington to enter her own home. Judge Foster looked at the deed Curtis had submitted. Mr. Washington, the judge said, addressing Raymond, is your name on this deed? No, Your Honor, Raymond admitted. Do you have any legal right to this property? Judge Foster asked. My mother is elderly, Raymond said. She's 71 years old. She can't safely live alone. We were trying to help her. By locking her out of her own home, Judge Foster said skeptically. Mr. Washington, if you were concerned about your mother's ability to live independently, there are legal processes. You can petition for guardianship. You can request a competency evaluation. What you cannot do is forcibly take over someone else's property. But, Raymond started. I'm issuing an order for immediate possession, Judge Foster interrupted. Mrs. Washington is the legal owner of the property. She is to be given immediate access. Mr. and Mrs. Raymond Washington are to vacate the property immediately and are prohibited from entering the property without Mrs. Washington's express permission. Where are we supposed to go? Estelle asked, upset. That's not the court's concern, Judge Foster said. You should have thought about that before you illegally took over someone else's home. Furthermore, I'm issuing a temporary restraining order. Mr. and Mrs. Washington are to stay at least 100 yards away from Mrs. Geneva Washington unless she grants permission for contact. Your Honor, that's my mother, Raymond protested. And you locked your mother out of her own home, Judge Foster said sternly. You'll stay away from her until she decides otherwise. This order is effective immediately. Sheriff's deputies will accompany Mrs. Washington to her home to ensure compliance. 2 hours later, I returned to my house accompanied by Curtis, 2 sheriff's deputies, and a locksmith. Raymond and Estelle were waiting on the porch, my porch, looking furious. Ma'am, these are your property owners, one deputy asked me. Yes, I confirmed. That's my son Raymond and his wife Estelle. They broke into my house yesterday and changed the locks. Mr. and Mrs. Washington, you've been served with a court order to vacate this property immediately, the deputy said, handing them papers. You need to gather your belongings and leave now. This is ridiculous, Estelle shouted. She's an old woman who can't take care of herself. Ma'am, the court has ruled, the deputy said. You need to leave, or you'll be arrested for violating a court order. Raymond and Estelle went inside and came back out 10 minutes later with a few bags. Apparently, they hadn't actually moved much of their stuff in yet since they'd only taken over the house yesterday. As they walked to their car, Raymond turned to me with pure hatred in his eyes. You're going to regret this, Raymond said. You're going to need help someday and I won't be there. You're going to die alone in that house. I'd rather die alone than live with a thief, I replied calmly. Raymond and Estelle got in their car and drove away. The locksmith changed all my locks again, this time to locks that only I had keys to. I walked through my house inspecting for damage. They'd started moving some furniture around, but they hadn't had time to do much. My bedroom appeared untouched. My important documents were still in my safe where I'd left them. Geneva, while you're checking the house, I need to tell you something, Curtis said. I've been in contact with the district attorney's office. They're opening a criminal investigation into Raymond for unlawful eviction and the attempted fraud from 6 months ago. Good, I said. There's a possibility Raymond could be arrested and charged with multiple felonies, Curtis continued. Are you comfortable with that outcome? My son tried to steal my house, I said. First by forging documents, now by physically taking it over. Yes, I'm comfortable with him facing criminal charges. He needs to learn that there are consequences for his actions. Before I continue, kindly subscribe now. Smash that like button and turn on notifications. Drop a comment. Should Raymond go to jail? Was Geneva right to change her will? Where are you watching from? 1 week after I regained possession of my house, the district attorney's office called to inform me they were filing criminal charges against Raymond. Mrs. Washington, this is Assistant District Attorney Opal Turner, the voice on the phone said. I've reviewed the evidence in your case against your son Raymond Washington. We're filing multiple criminal charges. What charges? I asked, my heart pounding. First-degree criminal trespass, a felony, Ada Turner said. Attempted theft by deception for the forged quitclaim deed 6 months ago, also a felony. And financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, another felony. Financial exploitation, I asked, surprised. He didn't actually steal money from me. He attempted to steal your house, which is worth approximately $380,000 according to the property records, Ada Turner explained. Under our state law, attempting to defraud an elderly person of property worth over $50,000 is classified as financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. It carries a sentence of up to 10 years in prison. My stomach turned. 10 years. My son could go to prison for 10 years. Mrs. Washington, I need to know if you're willing to cooperate with this prosecution, Ada Turner continued. This will likely go to trial. You'll need to testify about what happened, both the recent lockout and the attempted forgery 6 months ago. I thought about Raymond's face when he closed the door on me. I thought about him saying, "You're going to regret this." I thought about 40 years of increasing entitlement and pressure to give him my house. Yes, I said. I'll cooperate fully. My son needs to face consequences for what he's done. Good, Ada Turner said. An arrest warrant has been issued. Raymond will be arrested within the next 48 hours. 2 days later, Raymond was arrested at his workplace. I found out because Estelle called me, screaming. They arrested Raymond at his job, Estelle yelled when I answered. The police came to his workplace and arrested him in front of everyone. He's been fired because of this. Estelle, Raymond broke into my house and tried to steal it, I said calmly. He committed crimes. This is the consequence. He's your son, Estelle screamed. How can you do this to your own child? How could he lock me out of my own home? I countered. How could he forge my signature to try to steal my property? Estelle, Raymond made his choices. Now he has to face the results. He's going to go to prison, Estelle said. They're charging him with felonies. Do you understand what that means? His life will be ruined. He tried to ruin mine, I said. I spent 43 years building a life in my home. Raymond tried to take it all away from me in one afternoon. If you don't drop the charges, I'll make sure you never see us again, Estelle threatened. You'll never see your grandchildren. You'll die alone. I don't have grandchildren, I pointed out. You and Raymond never had children. And Estelle, I'd rather be alone than be with people who tried to steal from me. Estelle hung up on me. Raymond's arraignment was held the next day. I attended with Curtis to see what would happen. Raymond was brought into the courtroom in handcuffs, wearing the clothes he'd been arrested in the day before. He looked exhausted and scared. The judge read the charges. Raymond Washington, you're charged with first-degree criminal trespass, a Class D felony, attempted theft by deception, a Class C felony, and financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, a Class B felony. How do you plead? Not guilty, Raymond said quietly. Your Honor, the state requests bail be set at $100,000, Ada Turner said. The defendant attempted to steal his elderly mother's home, first by forging documents, then by forcibly taking over the property. He represents a continued threat to the victim. Your Honor, my client has no prior criminal record, Raymond's public defender argued. He was trying to help his elderly mother who he believed couldn't live safely alone. This is a family dispute, not a criminal matter. A family dispute, Judge Theodore Washington said skeptically. This family dispute involved forgery, breaking and entering, and unlawful eviction. Bail is set at $100,000. Next court date is set for preliminary hearing in 2 weeks. Raymond couldn't afford $100,000 bail. That meant he'd remain in jail until trial unless someone posted bail for him. I watched as Raymond was led out of the courtroom. He looked at me once, not with the hatred I'd seen when I forced him out of my house, but with desperation and pleading. I looked away. I couldn't let guilt manipulate me into dropping charges against someone who tried to steal from me. 2 weeks later, we returned to court for the preliminary hearing. This was where the prosecutor would present evidence to show there was probable cause to believe Raymond had committed the crimes he was charged with. Raymond was still in jail. No one had posted his bail. He looked even worse than at the arraignment, thinner, more exhausted, defeated. Ada Turner called me as her first witness. Mrs. Washington, please tell the court what happened on the afternoon of October 15th, Ada Turner said. I testified about coming home from grocery shopping to find my locks changed and Raymond refusing to let me inside. And Mr. Raymond Washington is your son? Ada Turner asked. Yes, I confirmed. Does he have any legal right to your property at 742 Maple Drive? Ada Turner asked. No, I said. The house is in my name only. I've owned it since 1980. Raymond has never been on the deed, never paid the mortgage, never paid property taxes. It's entirely my property. And 6 months prior to this incident, did something else occur involving your son and your property? Ada Turner asked. Yes, I said. Raymond forged my signature on quitclaim deed documents attempting to transfer my house to himself. The title company contacted me to verify the transfer, and I discovered I'd never signed the documents. The signature was forged. Did you file a police report at that time? Ada Turner asked. Yes, I confirmed. Raymond was investigated for fraud. I chose not to press charges at that time because he was my son and family members pressured me to give him another chance. But after he locked you out of your house 6 months later, you changed your mind about pressing charges, Ada Turner asked. Yes, I said. I realized Raymond would never stop trying to take my property as long as there were no consequences for his actions. Raymond's public defender cross-examined me, trying to suggest I was incompetent and Raymond was justified in taking over my house. Mrs. Washington, how old are you? The public defender asked. 71, I replied. And you live alone, he pressed. Yes, I said. Isn't it true that you've had some health issues recently? He asked. You fainted and were hospitalized about a year ago. I fainted once due to dehydration, I clarified. The hospital kept me overnight for observation and released me the next day with a clean bill of health. I'm perfectly healthy and capable of living independently. But your son was concerned about your ability to live alone safely, the public defender suggested. If my son was genuinely concerned about my welfare, he could have talked to me about it, I said firmly. He could have offered to help me arrange for assistance if I needed it. What he couldn't do, what he had no right to do, was break into my house, change my locks, and lock me out of my own property. The public defender had no response to that. After hearing testimony from me, the police officers who'd responded to the incident, and the title company representative who'd reported the forged documents, Judge Washington ruled from the bench. I find there is probable cause to believe the defendant Raymond Washington committed the crimes he's charged with, Judge Washington said. The evidence shows a clear pattern. The defendant attempted to steal his mother's property by forging documents. When that failed, he physically took over the property by breaking in and changing the locks while his mother was away. This is not a family dispute. This is theft, fraud, and elder abuse. The case will proceed to trial, Judge Washington continued. Trial is set for 8 weeks from today. Bail remains at $100,000. Raymond was led out of the courtroom, still in handcuffs. As he passed me, he stopped. Mom, please, Raymond said, his voice breaking. Please drop the charges. I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Please don't send me to prison. I looked at my son, the baby I'd given birth to 40 years ago, the child I'd raised and loved and provided for, and I felt nothing, no sympathy, no guilt, just a cold certainty that he'd made his choices and now had to live with them. You had your chance to be sorry 6 months ago when you forged my signature, I said quietly. You promised you'd never do anything like that again. Then you broke into my house and locked me out. I'm done giving you chances, Raymond. I'm your son, Raymond said desperately. And you treated me like property you could steal, I replied. You made your choice. Now face the consequences. The bailiff pulled Raymond away, and he was gone. 1 week after the preliminary hearing, I met with Curtis to finalize my new will. Geneva, I have the new will prepared, Curtis said, spreading documents across his desk. I want to review the key changes with you before you sign. Go ahead, I said. Under your previous will, Raymond was your primary beneficiary, Curtis began. He would have inherited your house, your savings accounts, your retirement accounts, everything except what was owed in estate taxes. And the new will, I asked. Your sister Minnie is now your primary beneficiary, Curtis said. She'll inherit the house, your financial accounts, and your personal property. Raymond is specifically excluded from inheriting anything. The will includes a clause explaining why, that Raymond attempted to steal your property through fraud and force, and that you're excluding him from your estate due to his criminal conduct. Good, I said. Geneva, I need to make sure you understand something, Curtis said seriously. Once you sign this will, Raymond will be completely disinherited. If you pass away before you reconcile with him, he'll get nothing. Are you comfortable with that? Yes, I said without hesitation. Raymond showed me who he really is. He values my property more than he values me. Why would I reward that by leaving him my estate? All right, Curtis said. There's one more thing. Under your previous will, Raymond was also designated as your healthcare power of attorney and the executor of your estate. We need to change those designations as well. Change them both to Minnie, I said. Curtis made notes on the documents. Done. Minnie will be your healthcare power of attorney, executor of your estate, and primary beneficiary. Geneva, you should know, when Raymond finds out about these changes, and he will eventually find out, he's going to be furious. He's already facing 10 years in prison for trying to steal my house, I said. I don't think finding out he's disinherited is going to make much difference at this point. I signed the new will, along with the updated healthcare power of attorney and executor designation. Curtis witnessed my signature and notarized all the documents. It's done, Curtis said. Geneva, I'm proud of you. A lot of elderly people in your situation would have backed down. They'd have been guilted into dropping charges or keeping their children in their wills despite being abused. You're standing up for yourself. I spent 43 years building a life and owning my home, I said. I'm not going to let anyone take that away from me, not even my own son. 2 weeks before Raymond's trial was scheduled to begin, Estelle showed up at my house. I saw her through my front window and considered not answering the door. But I was curious what she wanted. I opened the door, but kept the chain lock attached, the same way Raymond had opened the door to me when he'd locked me out. What do you want, Estelle? I asked through the gap. I need to talk to you, Estelle said. She looked terrible, exhausted, disheveled, like she hadn't slept in weeks. Talk, I said. Raymond has been in jail for 6 weeks, Estelle said. He's miserable, he's losing weight, he's depressed. Please, Geneva, he's your son. Drop the charges and let him come home. He doesn't have a home to come to, I said. You two were evicted from your apartment months before you broke into my house. We could get a new apartment if Raymond wasn't in jail, Estelle said. He could work, earn money, and we could start over. But he can't do any of that while he's locked up waiting for trial. He should have thought about that before he committed crimes, I said. Geneva, please, Estelle begged. I know Raymond made mistakes, but he's learned his lesson. If you drop the charges, he'll never bother you again. He'll leave you alone, just please don't send him to prison. Estelle, the charges aren't up to me anymore, I said. The district attorney has filed charges. Even if I wanted to drop them, which I don't, the state is prosecuting Raymond for elder abuse. I can't stop it. You could refuse to testify, Estelle suggested. Without your testimony, they can't prove their case. I'm not going to refuse to testify, I said firmly. Raymond broke into my house and tried to steal it. He forged my signature on legal documents. He needs to face consequences. Then he's going to go to prison, Estelle said, tears forming. He's going to be convicted. The DA is offering a plea deal, 5 years in prison. Raymond's lawyer says if he goes to trial and loses, he could get 10 years. Then maybe he should take the plea deal, I said. 5 years, Estelle cried. Geneva, that's 5 years of his life. He'll be 45 years old when he gets out. His entire future will be ruined. He tried to ruin mine, I said coldly. Estelle, I'm 71 years old. I worked my entire life to own my home. Raymond tried to take it away from me in one afternoon. He locked me out of my own house like I was a stranger. Do you have any idea how that felt? He was trying to help, Estelle insisted. He was trying to steal, I corrected, and now he's paying the price. Goodbye, Estelle. I closed the door. Through the door, I heard Estelle break down crying, but I didn't open the door again. I'd spent too many years letting guilt manipulate me into enabling Raymond's bad behavior. Those days were over. 3 days before trial was scheduled to begin, Curtis called me with news. Geneva, Raymond has accepted the plea deal, Curtis said. He's pleading guilty to all charges in exchange for a recommended sentence of 5 years in prison. 5 years. My son was going to prison for 5 years. When is the sentencing hearing? I asked. Next week, Curtis said. Geneva, the DA's office is asking if you want to give a victim impact statement at sentencing. You'd have the opportunity to speak directly to the judge about how Raymond's actions affected you. Will Raymond be there? I asked. Yes, Curtis confirmed. He'll be present for sentencing. Then yes, I said. I want to give a statement. I want Raymond to hear exactly what he did to me. The sentencing hearing was held in the same courtroom where Raymond had been arraigned 2 months earlier. Raymond was brought in wearing an orange jail jumpsuit. He'd lost significant weight during his 2 months in custody. He looked broken. Judge Washington reviewed the plea agreement. Mr. Raymond Washington, you've pleaded guilty to first-degree criminal trespass, attempted theft by deception, and financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. Do you understand that by pleading guilty, you're admitting you committed these crimes? Yes, Your Honor, Raymond said quietly. The plea agreement recommends a sentence of 5 years in state prison, Judge Washington said. Before I impose sentence, does the victim wish to make a statement? Yes, Your Honor, Ada Turner said. Mrs. Geneva Washington wishes to address the court. I stood and walked to the podium facing the judge. Raymond was sitting at the defense table to my left. I could feel him looking at me, but I kept my eyes on the judge. Your Honor, my name is Geneva Washington, I began. Raymond Washington is my son. I gave birth to him 40 years ago. I raised him, loved him, provided for him. And 6 weeks ago, he broke into my house and locked me out to try to steal it from me. My voice was steady. I'd practiced this statement multiple times. I bought my house in 1980 when I was 26 years old, I continued. I've owned it for 43 years. I paid the mortgage for 30 years until I paid it off. I've maintained it, paid property taxes, made it my home. That house represents 43 years of my life, my independence, my security. Raymond has spent years pressuring me to give him my house, I said. When I refused, he tried to forge my signature on documents to steal it. When I discovered that and filed a police report, he promised he'd never do anything like that again. I believed him. I gave him another chance. 6 months later, he broke into my house while I was grocery shopping, changed my locks, and refused to let me back inside, I said, my voice growing stronger. He locked his 71-year-old mother out of her own home. He told me I was too old to live there and I needed to find somewhere else to stay. He treated me like I was nothing. Like my home, my property, my 43 years of ownership meant nothing. I finally looked at Raymond. He had tears streaming down his face. Raymond didn't see me as his mother, I said. He saw me as an obstacle preventing him from taking my property. And when I stood up for myself, when I called the police and went to court to get my home back, he told me I was going to regret it and that I'd die alone. Your Honor, Raymond needs to go to prison, I concluded. Not just as punishment, but to protect other elderly people from his willingness to exploit and steal from vulnerable victims. If he'd do this to his own mother, what would he do to strangers? I ask that you impose the full 5-year sentence recommended in the plea agreement. I returned to my seat. The courtroom was completely silent. Judge Washington turned to Raymond. Mr. Washington, do you have anything to say before I impose sentence? Raymond stood, his whole body shaking. I'm sorry, Mom, he said, his voice breaking. I'm so sorry. I was desperate and stupid and greedy. I thought I deserved your house because I'm your son. But I was wrong. You worked for that house. You earned it. It's yours, not mine. I'm so sorry for what I did to you. Judge Washington let Raymond finish, then spoke. Mr. Washington, you committed serious crimes against your own mother, the judge said. You attempted to defraud her through forgery. When that failed, you physically took over her property and locked her out of her own home. These actions represent a profound betrayal of trust and a callous disregard for your mother's rights and dignity. I'm sentencing you to 5 years in state prison on the financial exploitation charge, Judge Washington announced. Additionally, upon your release, you'll be on supervised probation for 3 years. During that probation, you're prohibited from having any contact with your mother without her express written permission. Furthermore, the judge continued, I'm ordering you to pay restitution to your mother for all legal fees she incurred defending her property rights, a total of $12,000. The gavel came down. Raymond was led out of the courtroom in handcuffs. As he passed me, he looked at me one more time. I love you, Mom, he said. I said nothing. I just watched as my son was taken away to begin his 5-year prison sentence. Before I continue, kindly subscribe now. Smash that like button and turn on notifications. Drop a comment. Was 5 years too harsh or too lenient? Should Geneva ever forgive Raymond? Where are you watching from? 3 years after Raymond began his 5-year prison sentence, I'm 74 years old and living my best life in MY House. The house I've owned for 46 years, the house Raymond tried to steal from me. Raymond is currently in year 3 of his sentence. He has 2 years left before he's eligible for release. During those 3 years, I've received dozens of letters from him, letters apologizing, letters begging for forgiveness, letters asking me to visit him in prison. I haven't responded to a single one, and I haven't visited him once. But the story of how I rebuilt my life after my son tried to destroy it, and how Raymond's actions affected not just him, but everyone connected to him, is one worth telling. 6 months after Raymond went to prison, I ran into Estelle at the grocery store. She looked terrible, thin, exhausted, defeated. She saw me and immediately started crying. "Geneva, please," Estelle said, approaching me in the produce section. "Please visit Raymond. Please write to him. He's falling apart in prison. He needs to know you haven't completely given up on him." "Estelle, I have given up on him," I said calmly, continuing to select vegetables. "Raymond made his choices. Now he's living with the consequences." "He's your son," Estelle cried, drawing stares from other shoppers. "And he treated me like property he could steal," I replied. "Estelle, why are you even here? I thought you said you'd make sure I never saw you again if I didn't drop the charges." "I didn't mean that," Estelle said, wiping tears. "I was angry and scared. Geneva, I've lost everything. I lost my apartment because I couldn't afford rent without Raymond's income. I'm living with my sister now. I can barely afford food, and Raymond is in prison for 5 years because of you." "Raymond is in prison because of Raymond," I corrected firmly. "He broke into my house. He forged documents. He tried to steal my property. I didn't make him do those things. He chose to commit crimes, and now he's paying the price." "But you could help him," Estelle pleaded. "If you visited him, if you wrote to him, if you showed him you still care, it would give him hope. He could get through the rest of his sentence knowing his mother hasn't abandoned him. Like he abandoned me on my own front porch when he locked me out of my house," I asked pointedly. Estelle had no answer to that. "Estelle, I'm not visiting Raymond," I said. "I'm not writing to him. I'm not giving him hope that we'll reconcile when he gets out. He destroyed our relationship when he tried to steal from me. That relationship is over." "Then he was right," Estelle said bitterly. "You are going to die alone in that house." "Maybe," I said, "but at least it will be MY House when I die, not Raymond's." I walked away, leaving Estelle crying in the produce section. 1 year into Raymond's sentence, the letters started arriving regularly. Every week, sometimes twice a week, I'd receive a letter from Raymond at the state prison. I never opened them. I collected them in a box in my closet, unopened and unread. My sister Minnie, who now lived with me part-time since I'd made her my primary heir and given her a key to the house, asked me about them one day. "Geneva, why do you keep the letters if you're not going to read them?" Minnie asked. "Evidence," I said. "In case Raymond tries to claim I prevented him from contacting me. I want proof that he did contact me and I chose not to respond. There's a difference between being prevented from contact and being ignored." "You really think he'd try to claim that?" Minnie asked. "After everything Raymond has done, I don't put anything past him," I said. Minnie picked up one of the envelopes and turned it over. "Aren't you at least curious what he's saying?" "No," I said honestly. "Nothing Raymond can write in a letter will change what he did. He locked me out of my house. He tried to steal my property. No apology can undo that." "Geneva, I support whatever you decide," Minnie said. "But I want to make sure you're not keeping these letters and refusing to read them out of spite. That would only hurt you, not Raymond." "It's not spite," I said. "It's self-preservation. For 40 years, I let guilt and obligation manipulate me into enabling Raymond's bad behavior. Every time he did something wrong, I made excuses. Every time he asked for money, I gave it to him even when I couldn't afford it. Every time he pressured me about the house, I tried to gently deflect instead of firmly saying no. And where did that get me? I continued. It got me locked out of my own house. It got me a son who valued my property more than he valued me. I'm done letting Raymond manipulate me. If I read his letters, if I visit him, if I give him any hope that I'll forgive him, I'm opening the door for him to manipulate me again when he gets out. That's fair, Minnie said. Geneva, you're stronger now than I've ever seen you. I'm proud of you. 18 months into Raymond's sentence, I received a phone call from the prison. It was Raymond's prison counselor. Mrs. Washington, my name is Porter Lewis, and I'm a counselor at the state prison where your son Raymond is incarcerated, the man said. I'm calling to ask if you'd be willing to participate in a restorative justice program with Raymond. What's that? I asked warily. It's a program where victims and offenders meet face-to-face in a controlled, supervised setting, Porter explained. The offender takes responsibility for their actions and hears directly from the victim about the impact of the crime. The victim has the opportunity to express their feelings and ask questions. Studies show it can be healing for both parties. I'm not interested, I said immediately. Mrs. Washington, I understand your hesitation, Porter said. But I want you to know that Raymond has made significant progress in prison. He's been attending counseling, taking classes, working in the prison library. He's genuinely trying to change. That's wonderful for Raymond, I said, but it doesn't change what he did to me. No, it doesn't, Porter agreed. But Mrs. Washington, Raymond will be released in 3.5 years. When he gets out, he'll be on probation and prohibited from contacting you without your permission. But eventually, that probation will end. Don't you want to have closure before that happens? I have closure, I said. Raymond is in prison. He can't hurt me anymore. That's all the closure I need. Mrs. Washington, may I ask you something personal? Porter said. I suppose, I said reluctantly. Do you plan to never speak to your son again for the rest of your life? Porter asked. Even after he's served his sentence, even after years have passed. I paused, considering the question. Did I plan to never speak to Raymond again? Honestly, I hadn't thought that far ahead. I'd been so focused on protecting myself and my property that I hadn't considered what would happen in the distant future. I don't know, I admitted. Maybe, maybe not, but I'm not ready to face him now. Maybe I'll never be ready. That's your right, Porter said. But Mrs. Washington, if you ever change your mind, the offer stands. And if nothing else, please consider reading Raymond's letters. You don't have to respond, but reading them might help you understand where he is emotionally. I'll think about it, I said, though I had no intention of reading them. 2 years after Raymond went to prison, my life was better than it had been in decades. With Raymond out of my life and my house secure, I finally felt free to enjoy my retirement without the constant stress of worrying about him trying to take my property. I joined a local senior center and participated in activities, painting classes, book clubs, exercise groups. I made new friends who valued me for who I was, not for what they could get from me. I traveled short trips, nothing extravagant, but I visited places I'd always wanted to see. I went to the Grand Canyon, drove along the California coast, spent a week in New Orleans enjoying the food and music. My sister Minnie moved in with me permanently. We converted one of the bedrooms into her space, and she contributed to household expenses. It was wonderful having family in the house, but family who respected me, valued me, and didn't try to steal from me. Geneva, you seem happier than I've seen you in years, Minnie observed one evening as we sat on the porch, MY porch, watching the sunset. I am happy, I said. For the first time since Theodore died 15 years ago, I feel like I'm living my life, not constantly managing Raymond's problems or worrying about him trying to take my house. Do you ever think about him? Minnie asked. About Raymond in prison. Sometimes, I admitted. Not often. When I do think about him, I feel nothing. No sadness. No guilt. No longing to reconnect. Just a sort of neutral acknowledgement that he exists somewhere but isn't part of my life anymore. That's probably healthy, Minnie said. You grieved the loss of your son years before he went to prison. You grieved when you realized he'd never be the son you hoped he'd be. Minnie was right. I'd been grieving the loss of my relationship with Raymond for years. Every time he pressured me about the house, every time he prioritized property over our relationship, every time he made it clear he valued what he could get from me more than he valued me as a person. The Raymond I'd hoped to raise, kind, respectful, independent, had never really existed. Or if he had existed when he was young, that person had been replaced by someone greedy and entitled. I wasn't mourning the Raymond who was in prison. I was mourning the son I'd never actually had. 2.5 years into Raymond's sentence, Minnie and I were cleaning out my closet when she found the box of Raymond's unopened letters. Geneva, there must be 100 letters here, Minnie said, looking through the box. Probably, I said. He writes every week. And you haven't opened a single one, Minnie asked. No, I confirmed. Geneva, I think you should read them, Minnie said gently. Why? I asked, surprised. You supported my decision not to communicate with Raymond. I still do, Minnie said. But Geneva, you're 74 years old. Raymond will be out of prison in 2.5 years. At some point, you're going to have to decide whether there's any possibility of a relationship with him when he's released. And you can't make that decision if you have no idea where he is emotionally or whether he's genuinely changed. Reading his letters won't tell me if he's genuinely changed, I argued. People can write anything. It doesn't mean it's true. You're right, Minnie agreed. But Geneva, you're keeping these letters for a reason. If you truly wanted nothing to do with Raymond, you'd throw them away. But you're keeping them. That suggests some part of you wants to know what he's saying, even if you're not ready to admit it. I stared at the box of letters. Minnie was right. I could have thrown them away. But I'd kept every single one. I'll think about it, I said. That night, I took the box of letters to my bedroom and opened the first one. It was dated from 1 month after Raymond's sentencing, written on prison stationery in Raymond's handwriting. Dear Mom, I know you probably won't read this letter. I know you hate me for what I did. I hate myself too. I've had a lot of time to think in here. A lot of time to replay that afternoon when I locked you out of your house. I remember your face when you realized I'd changed the locks. You looked so shocked and hurt and betrayed. I did that to you. I betrayed my own mother. I don't have excuses. I was desperate and greedy, and I convinced myself I deserved your house because I'm your son. But I was wrong. The house is yours. You worked for it. You earned it. I had no right to try to take it. I'm sorry, Mom. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I'm sorry. I love you. I always will. Raymond. I read the letter twice, feeling complicated emotions. Part of me wanted to believe Raymond was genuinely remorseful. Part of me wondered if this was just another manipulation. Raymond saying what he thought I wanted to hear to try to restore a relationship so he could try again to get my property when he was released. I opened the second letter, dated 2 weeks after the first. It was similar, apologetic, remorseful, promising to change. I read through a dozen letters that night. They were all variations on the same themes. Raymond was sorry. He understood what he'd done was wrong. He was trying to become a better person. He hoped someday I'd forgive him. But none of the letters addressed the question I really needed answered. Why had Raymond done it? What had made him think he had the right to steal my house? I finally found the answer, in a letter dated 6 months into his sentence. Dear Mom, my prison counselor asked me to write you a letter explaining why I tried to take your house. Not just apologizing, but really exploring why I did it. So I'm going to try. I think it started when Dad died. You had this house and savings, and I started thinking about my inheritance. Estelle and I were always struggling financially, and I'd think, when Mom dies, I'll inherit the house and finally be secure. But then years went by and you stayed healthy and showed no signs of dying anytime soon, and I started to resent you for it. I know that sounds terrible, but it's true. I started resenting you for being alive and keeping me from inheriting what I thought should be mine. Then Estelle and I lost our house to foreclosure. We were evicted from our apartment. We had nothing. And meanwhile, you had this big house all to yourself. It seemed so unfair. I started telling myself that you didn't need the house, that you were old and should be in a retirement home anyway, that I deserved it more because I was younger and had more years to live in it. I convinced myself that taking the house wasn't stealing. It was just accelerating my inheritance, getting now what I was going to get eventually anyway. But Mom, I was wrong about all of it. The house isn't my inheritance until you're gone. You do need the house. It's your home, your security, your independence. And I didn't deserve it just because I'm your son. You don't owe me anything just because you gave birth to me. I stole from you, I betrayed you, and I'm sorry. Raymond. I set the letter down, tears streaming down my face. Not tears of forgiveness or reconciliation, but tears of grief and anger. Raymond had resented me for not dying fast enough to give him his inheritance. He'd looked at his elderly mother and seen not a person, but an obstacle preventing him from taking what he wanted. How do you forgive that? How do you rebuild a relationship with someone who admitted they resented your continued existence? 3 years after Raymond went to prison, I made a decision. I would allow him one supervised visit before his release. Not to reconcile, not to forgive, but to have closure, to look him in the eye and tell him exactly what he'd done to me and what our relationship would be going forward. I contacted the prison and arranged a visit. The meeting would be supervised by Raymond's counselor Porter, and I'd have the right to end it at any time. The visit took place in a small conference room at the prison. Porter was present, sitting in the corner taking notes, but not participating unless necessary. Raymond was brought in wearing his prison uniform. He'd changed dramatically in 3 years. He'd lost the excess weight he'd carried before prison. His hair was graying, and he looked older than his 43 years. When he saw me, his eyes filled with tears. "Mom," Raymond said, his voice breaking. "Sit down, Raymond," I said, my voice neutral. We sat across from each other at a small table. For a moment, neither of us spoke. "Thank you for coming," Raymond finally said. "I didn't think you ever would." "I'm not here to reconcile," I said clearly. "I'm here to say what needs to be said so we both have closure." "Okay," Raymond said, looking crushed but not surprised. "Raymond, I read your letters," I said. "I read the one where you admitted you resented me for not dying fast enough to give you your inheritance." Raymond's face went pale. "Mom." "Don't interrupt," I said firmly. "You looked at your 71-year-old mother and saw an obstacle. You resented that I was alive and healthy and living in MY house instead of being dead and leaving you that house in my will." "I was wrong," Raymond said, tears falling. "I was so wrong, I don't feel that way anymore." "It doesn't matter if you feel that way anymore," I said. "You felt that way then, and those feelings led you to forge my signature and break into my house and lock me out. Raymond, do you have any idea what that did to me?" "I'm sorry," Raymond said. "I stood on my own porch with bags of groceries, unable to get into MY house," I continued. "The house I'd owned for 43 years, the house I'd worked my entire life to maintain, and my own son wouldn't let me inside. Do you know how that felt?" "I'm sorry," Raymond repeated, sobbing now. "I felt betrayed, violated, disposable," I said. "Like my home, my entire life meant nothing, like I meant nothing to you." "You mean everything to me," Raymond said desperately. "No, Raymond," I corrected. "Your inheritance from me meant everything to you. I was just the person standing between you and what you wanted." Raymond had no response to that. He just sat there crying. "I want you to understand something," I said. "I've changed my will. You're no longer my beneficiary. My sister Minnie will inherit everything, the house, my savings, all of it. When I die, you'll get nothing." Raymond looked like I'd slapped him, but he nodded. "I understand. I deserve that." "Yes, you do," I agreed. "Raymond, you have 2 more years in prison. When you're released, you'll be on probation. During that probation, you're prohibited from contacting me without my permission." "I know," Raymond said. "I'm not giving you permission," I said. When you're released, I don't want to hear from you. I don't want letters. I don't want phone calls. I don't want surprise visits. I want you to leave me alone." "Forever?" Raymond asked, his voice barely a whisper. "I don't know," I admitted. "Maybe forever. Maybe someday I'll be ready to have some kind of limited relationship with you. But Raymond, that day is not today. And it might not be for many years, or ever." "Mom, please," Raymond started. "This is what you did," I interrupted. "You destroyed our relationship. You can't fix it by apologizing. You can't undo what you did. The consequences of your actions include losing your mother. That's the price you're paying." Raymond was openly sobbing. "I love you, Mom." "I loved you too," I said, past tense deliberate. "I loved the son I thought I had, but that son doesn't exist. The real Raymond, the one who resented me for living, who tried to steal my house, who locked me out, that person I don't love, that person I don't trust, and I don't know if I can ever love or trust you again." I stood to leave. "Mom, wait," Raymond said desperately. "Is there anything I can do? Anything at all that would make you consider forgiving me someday?" I paused at the door and turned back. "Become someone worthy of forgiveness," I said. "Not for me, for yourself. Become someone who respects other people's boundaries and property. Become someone who values relationships more than money. Become someone your father would have been proud of. Do that and maybe, in many years we can try to build something new. But Raymond, I'm 74 years old. I might not live long enough for you to become that person." I left the prison and didn't look back. I'm Geneva, Washington, 74 years old, and 3 years ago my son Raymond changed the locks on my door while I was grocery shopping and tried to steal my house. That night, sitting in a hotel room, I made phone calls that changed Raymond's entire future. I called my attorney, the police, my bank, my financial advisor. I set in motion a series of events that led to Raymond being arrested, charged with multiple felonies, convicted, and sentenced to 5 years in prison. I also changed my will, removing Raymond as my beneficiary and leaving everything to my sister Minnie instead. Did I do the right thing? Yes, absolutely yes. Raymond didn't just commit crimes against me. He betrayed the fundamental trust between parent and child. He looked at his elderly mother and saw property to exploit, not a person to love and respect. Some people have said I was too harsh, that he's my son and I should forgive him, that 5 years in prison is too much for a family dispute. But this wasn't a family dispute. This was theft, fraud, elder abuse. And I refuse to accept the idea that being someone's mother means I have to tolerate being victimized by them. My family changed the locks on my door. That night, I changed their entire future. Raymond's future changed from waiting to inherit his mother's house to convicted felon serving 5 years in prison with no inheritance. My future changed from constantly worried about my son trying to steal my property to living peacefully in my home with my sister, enjoying my retirement. And Minnie's future changed from living in another state to living with her sister in a beautiful house that she'll inherit. 3 years later, I have no regrets. I live in MY House, the house I've owned for 46 years. I have full control of my property and my life. I have peace. I have security. I have a loving sister who respects me and lives with me. And I have the satisfaction of knowing that I stood up for myself when it mattered most. Raymond will be released from prison in 2 years. I don't know what will happen then. Maybe he'll have genuinely changed. Maybe he'll reach out and I'll be ready to consider some kind of limited relationship. Maybe we'll never speak again. But what I do know is this: I protected myself. I protected my home. And I showed Raymond and anyone else who might consider exploiting an elderly person that being old doesn't mean being weak. My son thought he could bully me into giving up my house because I was elderly and alone. He thought I'd be too scared or too guilty to fight back. He was wrong. I fought back with every legal tool available, and I won. My family changed the locks on my door. That night, I changed their entire future, and I'd do it again without hesitation. Because I deserve to live with dignity, security, and respect in the home I've worked my entire life to maintain. And no one, not even my own son, has the right to take that away from me. 3 years later, Geneva thriving and Raymond serving time. Raymond in year 3 of 5-year sentence, 2 years left before release. Geneva received dozens of letters from prison, apologizing, begging forgiveness, asking for visits. Geneva hasn't responded to single one or visited once. 6 months after sentencing, Geneva ran into Estelle at grocery store. Estelle looked terrible, thin, exhausted, defeated, started crying. Please visit Raymond. He's falling apart in prison. Needs to know you haven't given up on him. Geneva calm. I have given up on him. Raymond made choices, living with consequences. Estelle, he's your son. Geneva, and he treated me like property he could steal. Estelle, I've lost everything, lost apartment without Raymond's income, living with my sister, can barely afford food. Raymond in prison for 5 years because of you. Geneva firm. Raymond in prison because of Raymond. He broke into house, forged documents, tried to steal property. I didn't make him commit crimes. He chose to, now paying price. Estelle pleaded. If you visited, wrote, showed you still care, would give him hope. Geneva, like he abandoned me on own porch when locked me out. Estelle, no answer. I'm not visiting, not writing, not giving hope will reconcile when he gets out. He destroyed relationship, it's over. Estelle bitter. Then he was right, you are going to die alone in that house. Geneva, maybe, but at least it'll be my house when I die, not Raymond's. 1 year after sentencing, letters arriving weekly, sometimes twice weekly. Geneva never opened them, collected in box in closet unopened. Sister Minnie, now living with Geneva part-time as primary heir. Why keep letters if not reading? Geneva, evidence. In case Raymond claims I prevented contact, want proof he did contact and I chose not to respond. There's difference between being prevent and being ignored. Minnie, aren't you curious? Geneva, no, nothing in letter will change what he did. No apology can undo locking me out, trying to steal property. It's not spite, it's self-preservation. For 40 years let guilt manipulate me into enabling Raymond. Made excuses, gave money I couldn't afford, gently deflected instead of firmly saying no. Where did that get me? Locked out of own house. Son who valued property more than me. Done letting Raymond manipulate. If I read letters, visit, give any hope I'll forgive, opening door for him to manipulate again when released. 18 months after sentencing. Prison counselor Porter Lewis called. Do you participate in restorative justice program? Victims and offenders meet face-to-face, supervised, offender takes responsibility, victim expresses feelings. Raymond made significant progress, attending counseling, taking classes, working prison library, genuinely trying to change. Geneva, that's wonderful for Raymond but doesn't change what he did to me. Porter, Raymond will be released in 3.5 years, on probation prohibited from contacting you, but eventually probation ends. Don't you want closure before that? Geneva, I have closure. Raymond in prison can't hurt me anymore. That's all the closure I need. 2 years after sentencing, Geneva's life better than in decades. Without Raymond, finally free to enjoy retirement without stress of him trying to take property. Joined senior center, painting, book clubs, exercise. Made new friends who valued her, not what they could get. Traveled, Grand Canyon, California coast, New Orleans. Minnie moved in permanently, converted bedroom, contributes to expenses. Wonderful having family who respects her. Geneva happy. First time since Theodore died 15 years ago, feel like living my life, not constantly managing Raymond's problems or worrying about him trying to take house. Minnie, you seem happier than in years. Do you think about Raymond? Geneva, sometimes, not often. When I do, feel nothing, no sadness, guilt, longing to reconnect. Just neutral acknowledgement he exists somewhere but isn't part of life anymore. Minnie, that's healthy. You grieved loss years before prison when realized he'd never be son you hoped. Geneva, been grieving for years every time he prioritized property over relationship. The Raymond I hoped to raise, kind, respectful, independent, never really existed. Not mourning Raymond in prison, mourning son I never actually had. 2.5 years after sentencing, cleaning closet, Minnie found box of 100 plus unopened letters. You should read them. Geneva, why? Minnie, you're 74, Raymond out in 2.5 years. At some point must decide if any possibility of relationship. Can't decide if no idea where he is emotionally. You're keeping letters for reason. If truly wanted nothing, you'd throw away. Part of you wants to know what he's saying. That night Geneva opened first letter 1 month after sentencing. I know you won't read this. Hate me, I hate myself too. Lot of time to think. Replay afternoon locking you out. Remember your face. Shocked, hurt, betrayd. I did that. I betrayd own mother. No excuses, desperate, greedy, convinced myself deserved house. But wrong house is yours, I'm sorry. Read dozen letters, all apologetic, remorseful, promising change. Then found letter explaining why 6 months in. Prison counselor asked me to explain WHY. Started when dad died, you had house savings, I thought about inheritance. Estelle and I struggling, I'd think, when mom dies, I'll inherit house and be secure. But years went by, you stayed healthy, no signs of dying. I started resting you for it, resenting you for being alive and keeping me from inheriting. Then we lost house, evicted. We had nothing while you had big house to yourself. Seemed unfair. Started telling myself you didn't need house, should be in retirement home, I deserved it more. Convinced myself taking house wasn't stealing, just ACCLERATENG my inheritance. But wrong about all. House isn't my inheritance until you're gone. You do need house. It's home, security, independence. I didn't deserve it just because I'm your son. I stole from you. Geneva in tears reading. Raymond rested her for not dying fast enough. Looked at elderly mother and saw obstacle not person. How do you forgive that? How rebuild relationship with someone who rested your continued existence? 3 years after sentencing, Geneva decided to allow one supervised visit before release, not to reconcile forgive, but for closure. At prison meeting supervised by Porter. Raymond brought in, changed dramatically, lost weight, graying, looked older than 43. Saw Geneva, eyes filled with tears. Mom! Geneva neutral. Sit down, I'm not here to reconcile, here to say what needs to be said. Raymond, I read letters, the one where you admitted resting me for not dying fast enough. You looked at 71-year-old mother and saw obstacle. Resented I was alive and healthy in my house instead of dead leaving you house. Raymond pale. I was wrong, don't feel that way anymore. Geneva. Doesn't matter, you felt that way then. Those feelings led to forging signature, breaking in, locking me out. I stood on own porch with groceries unable to get in, felt betrayed, violeted, disposable. Like my home, my life meant nothing. Like I meant nothing to you. Raymond sobbing. You mean everything to me. Geneva. No, your inheritance from me meant everything. I was just person standing between you and what you wanted. I've changed my will, you're no longer beneficiary. Sister Minnie inherits everything, house, savings, all. When I die, you get nothing. Raymond looked slapped but nodded. I understand, I deserve that. Geneva. Yes, you do. You have 2 more years in prison. When released on probation, prohibited from contacting me. I'm not giving permission. Don't want letters, calls, visits. Leave me alone. Raymond. Forever. Geneva. Maybe someday I'll be ready for limited relationship, but not today, might not be for many years or ever. This is what you did, destroyed relationship. Can't fix by apologizing. Consequences include losing your mother, that's the price. Raymond sobbing. I love you, Mom. Geneva, past tense deliberate. I loved you too. Loved the son I thought I had. But that son doesn't exist. Real Raymond who resented me, tried to steal house, locked me out, that person I don't love, don't trust. Don't know if I can ever love or trust you again. As leaving, Raymond desperate. Is there anything I can do? Geneva paused. Become someone worthy of forgiveness, not for me, for yourself. Become someone who respects boundaries, property, values relationships more than money. Someone your father would be proud of. Do that, maybe in many years we try to build something new. But Raymond, I'm 74, might not live long enough for you to become that person. Left prison, didn't look back. At 74, Geneva has no regrets. My family changed locks. That night I changed their entire future. Raymond's future changed from waiting to inherit to convicted felon, 5 years prison, no inheritance. My future changed from constantly worried about son stealing to living peacefully with sister, enjoying retirement. Minnie's future changed from living another state to living with sister, inheriting beautiful house. I have peace, security, loving sister who respects me. Satisfaction of standing up when it mattered. Raymond released in 2 years. Don't know what happens then. Maybe genuinely changed, maybe limited relationship, maybe never speak again. But I protected myself, protected home. Showed Raymond, and anyone considering exploiting elderly, being old doesn't mean being weak. My son thought could bully me because elderly and alone, thought too scared or guilty to fight. He was wrong. I fought back with every legal tool. I won. Because I deserve to live with dignity, security, respect in home I worked life to maintain. No one, not even own son, has right to take that away. This story proves that you're never too old to fight back against theft. Being someone's parent doesn't mean tolerating abuse. Property crimes against elderly are prosecutable felonies. Changing your will is your right when betrayed. Prison is appropriate consequence for elder exploitation. Living well without toxic family is justice. Protecting yourself isn't cruelty, it's self-preservation. Age doesn't equal weakness or helplessness. If this story inspired you, please subscribe to this channel for more justice stories. Smash that like button. Turn on notifications for new content. Drop a comment. Would you have visited Raymond in prison? Should Geneva ever reconcile? Where are you watching from? United States, Canada, United Kingdom, Jamaica, South Africa, Australia, Trinidad, Philippines? Let me know. Remember, if family tries to steal your property, document everything. File police reports, contact attorney immediately, change locks, freeze bank accounts, update will beneficiaries, press criminal charges. Elder exploitation is felony. Don't let guilt prevent you from protecting yourself. Being family doesn't give right to abuse. Property in your name is yours, fight for it. Age doesn't mean helpless, use legal system. You deserve dignity and security. Geneva's son Raymond changed locks and tried to steal her house. That night, Geneva called attorney, police, bank, advisor, changed Raymond's entire future. He was arrested, convicted of felonies, sentenced to 5 years prison. Geneva changed will, disinherited Raymond completely. 3 years later, Geneva thriving in her house with sister Minnie. Raymond in prison with no inheritance. Geneva proved being 71 doesn't mean weak, fought back and won. Thank you for following this powerful journey from lockout to legal victory to complete life restoration. Until the next story, protect your property, stand up for yourself, and remember you're never too old to fight for what's yours.